First of all, thanks for the user group. Thanks everyone for coming. I will be talking a little bit about what happened in the past years. But before starting, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Rachel. I'm solution engineer at Tableau. Usually I don't wear this makeup, so please don't associate me with the blue makeup and this hair. And I usually am not this way either. I was kind of highly excited because it was bootcamp and they tell us that would be super data fun. That said, I used to be a journalist, did my career change through the Information Lab in the UK. I'm co-lead for Data Plus Women. And when I'm not doing anything data related, usually you see me cycling. So for those in Rotterdam, if you see someone that looks like me in an Emonda, it's me. And I went to the wrong side. That's nice. Okay. So just to start the presentation, because I forgot to put the sound. So this is the way that we fail when we're doing transitions. That was a clip from Back to the Future. That is the theme for the thing today, but we won't hear it because I forgot to share my sound. So we will go without the clip to the next slide. To what is important. That is what we'll be doing here today. And what you'll be doing here today is covering everything that happened in Tableau, because the world was quite slow, but our developers were not. So they delivered a bunch of stuff. And I'm quite sure that for some of you, some of those things went a bit without being noticed. Even for me, for instance, I did this filter. This is already a filter. We launched much more stuff than is here. And if you ask me, for instance, when any of those things happened, I totally won't be able to tell you because I really can't remember. So we did this small selection of things that happened in the past launches. And what we'll be doing and seeing here today is a demo because, of course, we're having presential events again. So nothing better than crashing everything in front of everyone, right? Having an audience to fail. So you're welcome to see me probably failing at some point here in this demo. And I will be demoing some of the things that we launched in the past year. So we have Viz animations, relationships, in operator, block comments. Pretty nice. I like it. It's a bit underrated. Quick LODs, S data for viewers, personal space, map layers, and workbook optimizer that came yesterday night. I was pretty like, oh, please launch it this way again, show it tomorrow. And they did. And we will not be demoing Log4j. It's just to tell everyone that if you can find any of the previews of our versions online, it's because we took them off because of this, right? So now if you search our old products, we don't have everything available. So, okay, that said, let's go for the favorite part of everyone. That is when we start to show things and things go wrong. So let's go first. You start the day in a place where everyone loves, right? That is our user interface, our server. Server in the past years, we had a lot of things changing. So we have here our search, for instance. We started to have this nice new way to show things. And we can see also new types of content, like, for instance, the collections. And the collections, they are nothing else than a way to organize content. They're not a folder, they're not a project. They're just a way to the user to organize stuff that they would like to put, that they think that makes sense to be together. So for instance, my content for today is inside my collection. And as you see, I have here one data source, I have here one dashboard. They are coming from different folders in different parts of the server, but I put all together just for the sake of finding them easily. And starting by my data source that is not related to my dashboard because I hadn't that amount of time to prepare this presentation. Let's go first to a tiny change that I really like and I didn't highlight on my slide. That is this one. If you look at the name of my data source, look at this data set with such a strange name. In the past, if I decided to change this name, what would happen is I would crash everything. So if I would like to come here and call it IMDb films and rename, everything connected to this data source would suddenly not be connected anymore. Now it doesn't happen. I can change the name, I can change how many times I would like, and everything is still working. So for instance, if I look here, I have this lens that is also something new that happened during those past 2 years, and my lens is still working. And now let's go to the lens, because I don't know if you're all familiar, if you have tried it, if you have used it, but the lens is something that we also launched in the past 2 years. And the idea is now you can make it easier when you're kind of making things available from a data set through Ask Data. You can select what exactly you would like to show. So I can now curate my data set, so I don't need to make everything available. I can make it easier for my end user to use in Ask Data. And another thing that we did in the past 2 years, Ask Data now is available to everyone. So let's say you do have this user that never understood very well, you know, this thing around drag and drop, and the person really don't get this thing that you need to put fields, whatever, row, column, rain, blow, sounds confusing. So the person can use Ask Data instead. And this way, the person can just ask questions in a natural way, using natural language without the need of dragging anything. So in this example here, let's start by average rating. This is a IMDb. I guess that Tristan and I, we use the same database probably, because I saw that you're with films sci-fi in the 80s. So yeah, we have kind of different views of the same data. And what I do here is, so I'm now not the analyst anymore. I'm the user that doesn't know how to drag and drop stuff in Tableau. And what I would like to see here is, I would like to do a quick analysis of the rating and see the rating for Back to the Future. And there's kind of a few things that I can explore here. So here I have the average rating for all my database. Let's say that I would like to have a look on this by the decades instead. So if now I do it, decades, you see that it shows each one of them sorted in a not very good way because they are sorted by the average. But if I would like to put it the sort in the other way alphabetically, I can. So then it will be chronological, make more sense. And what else I can do here? For instance, I can finish doing what I was trying to do, my question, right? That was, I'd like to see just Back to the Future. I wouldn't like to see all the films that I have here in this database. So what I can do here, I can go film name. If it contains Back to the Future, let's see if I'm typing it correctly, Back to the Future. You're probably seeing better than I. Okay, contains Back to the Future. Seems good. Enter. Okay. Now I'm seeing the average for films that are called Back to the Future on my database. But sounds a bit weird because there is one in 2021, right? Is there Back to the Future in 2021? We can ask the database. We can ask, can you please ask data? Help me here. Put the film names this way I can see. Maybe it's Back to the Future and something else. So I can add here the names, and now I see that in reality, there is some strange things here, like Back to the Future fan remake. I wouldn't like this. I will exclude. This I will exclude. This I will exclude. And now I do have the ones that I really would like, that are the 3 sequels of the Back to the Future. And as you can see, the quality of the move decreased with time. For everyone that watched the 3, I guess that it's no news, right? The data is just kind of remind us how bad it got when it reached the 3rd one. And what I can do from here now also is I can share this. So let's see that I don't know that I've done this visualization and I would like to share it with myself. I can send it to me and I will have it on my email or Slack. I will have a notification about this as data visualization that I did. So, okay, we had a look here honest data and on this database and this data set. But there is something interesting on this data set. That is, if you look here, we have kind of different tables coming in. And thus, if we go now, the thing that every analyst loves, we can go back to desktop, not back to the future, but back to desktop. And I think that I'm in the, okay, I'm in the right one, yes. So what I will see here is that this is exactly the same data that we're using on S data. And what we have here is, instead of doing the traditional join where you need to know exactly the relationship between the two, if you get left or right or inner, here, what we're doing is we're bringing in all those tables, but letting the Tableau to create the way that they will be related when we do the view. So it solves a lot of the problems, and we're not creating here a physical table. It will be every time that we interact, it will create it the way that we're bringing it to the pane. So it's more dynamic than we had before. And you see that for those of you that are asking, does it mean that we killed the possibility to do joins? No, we didn't. If you double click, it's still here. So if you need, and sometimes you do need, so rest assured, it's still in the product, it didn't disappear. Another thing that is also important is that for those of you that are more savvy in the database side, you see that you can also help Tableau to identify the cardinality between the tables. So if it's a many-to-many relationship, one-to-many, you can help Tableau to know it. If you don't know, you don't need to change. But if you change, it will improve the performance of your data set. Okay, so how does it work, for instance, in the end of the day? It works like, let's get here only 80s. And now let's bring here, for instance, my film names, and I will get the titles, the count of the titles. And you see that for each one of the titles, I have one, which makes sense, right? Because it's one title, they're in the same table, and it's only counting what I have. And if I look at here, you see that it's basically bringing only one of my tables, right? I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tables, but only one of them is being queried by Tableau at this moment. If I do something slightly different, so for instance, if I go here where I have the actors and then the count of titles, so count of titles is still the same one that it comes here from titles. But now I have actor name that comes from actors. It comes from another table. And if I have a look now here, if I do the same thing and check the data, you see that I will have now actor name and the titles. If I go here, see, I have each one of the titles for this person that I'm checking. So I'm bringing in now information about 2 tables at the same time. And we saw now a bit of the relationship. We saw how it works, but there is another thing also that appeared during this year. This year, no, it's 2 years. I almost said during this decade. It's not even a decade either. It's only 2 years. There are another thing that happened that is also amazing for those of you that are new to Tableau and not very sure about how to use not relationships, LODs. That is, we now have a bit of a cheating way to create LODs. I don't know for those of you who is confident that you know how to do an LOD and make it work. Raise your hands. Good. I can see lots of confidence here. For those of you that don't have that confidence, don't worry. Now we can cheat. That's fine. You know, everyone needs to start in one place. I think that's the important thing. So let's say I'm still here on my amazing films of the 80s. And I will do now another thing. I will bring here the rating. I will sort them by this rating. I will, where is this? There is a year somewhere, release year. And now what I would like is to do my list, because I checked the weather. Apparently it will be very bad during the weekend. So not good for cycling. Maybe I can do something else. I can be cycling inside on Zwift, watching the best of the 80s. And for this, what I would like is not only a list like the top 10 of the 80s, but I would like to check which ones are better than the average for the year. So for each one of the years in the 80s, I would like to check if the film is better than the average. And for this, I need an LOD. And if I don't know how to do one, now I have a kind of a beautiful way to do. It's something like I would just select rating and release year. And if you click here now, you see that I have created LOD calculation. And look at this, it's beautiful. Even for those that are confident doing LODs, you don't need to type the beginning of it. I like this, you know, that less typing is always better. And for those of you that are new, here we go, an easy way to have your first LOD. You don't need to kind of type anything. You don't need to remember the structure. You just go there and it's done. And let's just check if our LOD works. So I can bring it here. Let's put it on the label, a very bad way to check, but it's okay. And if now I go and see, for instance, this is 87, this is 87. Here we go, my LOD works. The numbers are the same, this is good. So I can go to step 2, that is, do the rest of my calculation. That was, oops, this one I opened is already, come on. Okay. Then what I would do basically is I will get my LOD that is here, and I will do the average rating less my LOD. And this way I will know which are the movies that are better and which ones that are worse than the average in their years. So I can put it here in color. You see that those here on top are good. If I go down, probably I start to have a bunch of colors, and I can, of course, reuse this in different ways. So if I come here to this, and let me just change the way here so we can better see the thing. I'll take it off. I forgot to take it off before the presentation, sorry. So what I will do now is reuse the calculation that we created. I can bring it here. So I can put it, for instance, in color. And here I can see all the films that I wouldn't like to watch, right? Because they have very bad average. And I can now also make this, for instance, a filter, because this way I can interact with it. So if my idea was to just get the ones that are better than the year average, I can come, and for instance, put it here, set it for something higher than 0. And now I'm getting only films that are better than their year average. And if I do here now a selection, let's have a look what we have here on plate. So some familiar names here, right? Did you all watch it? Look at this, Back to the Future again, The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is a pretty nice one. I can watch again during the weekend, but this is not important, right? The films that I watch, let's keep going. So we saw now how it works, the quick LODs. And what we'll do is quick back to Toll now, because I'd like to show another thing there. Oh, did I disappear with my Toll? No, this is my Toll, sorry. It's still here. It's just because it's kind of addressed as data. So if I go back to Toll, there is another thing that is also new. And this one, please use, test, and send feedback to our devs, because this way they will do some improvements that I think that would be pretty nice in the personal space. But personal space is also something new. I don't know in this room who does site or server management, basically who is here setting permissions for folders and this type of stuff. So have you ever tried to implement personal space? No, it was very nice before it existed. It was something like you needed to spend a lot of time and test it and copy someone that did it work well. to make sure that you would create a folder that would be visible only to the person that showed. So you basically would block everyone but the person to see. Now we don't need to do it anymore. It's there in the product. And it's basically this. It's your private space to create content. So you can do stuff. You can come here, and I'm sure that this that I published here is here only for me. So no one else can access, no one else can see, no one else can interact. It's only for myself. And it's here for me because I'd like yet to do some review before making it available. So it's not finished yet, but I can already show another thing that is new and that is also interesting. You see that now there is a little thing here that is control map layers. And control map layers, what it does is if I create a map with different layers that you see a little bit further how to do it, you can allow the user, the viewer, to control the layers. So let's say that I start to interact here with this. And here is old Rotterdam, and you can kind of have a look in the use of the soil, and you can have a look also in the names of people owning the land. And let's say that I start here to interact. So I would like to see here my name. I click it here. Here we go. Filter applied. But then I noticed that, for instance, the layer, I have here three layers, and one of them is kind of not allowing me to see very well the land. So for instance, there is this layer with streets that if I take it off, now I can see better the lands that are on the backs, right? So I can let it to the user to decide, for instance, if the user would like to see everything or if the user would like to decide which layers to be visible. And nice, we saw it here in the end of it, but how it works and if I'm looking at it on the desktop side. So let's do again our back to desktop. Oh, and that's nice. Now I don't know, I guess that I closed it at some point, but here we go. Let's open it. That this one is the visualization that we're seeing. Let's see if it will open nice and cute. And let's just see here if it is in the wrong version. No, Tableau, don't do this. I will reopen because, you know, I told everyone that this is live. So we have the right to do things wrong, right? If everything goes right, it's very wrong. So here we go. Now I guess that it's in the beautiful and right version. Nice. Now we're correct. And what we are seeing, so it's basically if we go here, we have the visualization that we're seeing online. If we go here, you can see the map. And basically this map is an overlay of different maps that I have here. So here I have the data from the streets that comes from one data source. Here I have the data from Rotterdam that comes from another one. And in the end, what I'm doing is just putting it all together. So I'm getting here, I'm putting in here my geometries. So here I'm bringing the streets, and I was doing something like putting here the color of the direction that they work. That didn't work. Here we go. And combining it with the other. And you can see here that one layer comes from one data set. The other layer comes from another data set. So I'm overlaying the two of them. You can see that now there is no this thing. You remember in the past that if you needed to put two things, you needed to kind of duplicate and you would have kind of two latitudes and blah, blah, blah. And if you need to put three, it wouldn't be possible because it would be possible to just duplicate and not triplicate it. Now it's solved. You can triplicate it. The limit is your imagination and the performance of your dashboard. And we have questions. Okay.
We still have to do a join on these overlapping geometries, or they're still joined by a common field?
No, they're here in reality. If you look I think that I can do it without doing everything. Each one of them is a different data source. And of course, they here work beautifully because they are in the same area in the world. If they were one here, another in Brazil, they would appear, but then quite distant. So you don't need to do it, but of course, as you're kind of doing a geographic representation, if they're too far away, you won't see anything in the end because they're quite small. But as you can see, if you go from one to another, they're kind of a different data source, and there is nothing set between them. They're just overlapping because of the information that they contain.
They also see which data source you're sharing. It's just the blue one. We per se lose blue. The other one is no indication. So you can't really see
the previous, yeah, it's interesting because I've never noticed that it happens. But let's do one thing that is, yeah, this one. Yeah, because yeah, this one, see, this layer comes from streets. And now it's not even possible to see. I guess that this in reality, it's because I'm using 2022.1 and there are some bugs happening because I see that there is nothing here. None of them appears. Seems like it's coming from nowhere. That's not true. It's coming from one of the data source. In this case, this one here. So I think that it's just not showing us where it's coming from. Shouldn't be this way. But anyway, adventures of 2022.1, I can after check why it's not appearing any color here. Sounds like it's a map coming from another dimension. This is basically how it works. So you can basically now layer stuff. So you can bring information from different data sets, put it together, create the map, and let the control to the user in the end, as we saw in the beginning. And the other thing that I would like to show also here, and this data set is one thing that I mentioned in the beginning. And here I will show a calculation, things that we usually don't do every day. But here, look at this block. Do you all remember that we used to need to do this for each line of thing that we needed to comment in Tableau? We don't need to do it anymore. I'm so happy that I did this comment with 4 lines, and I would like to ask for your opinion, because on my mat, I put this thing that now I try to pronounce, and then you can tell me that it's horrible because my Dutch is very low level. I would like to understand if I can really put Boomhart as green or as groen, or if it's a kind of a misinterpretation of my Dutch. Is it okay? Should I leave it? Okay, so we'll leave it as green. That is what I had on my map here, right? It was classified as green when we use the green layer. And what I'll do now that I check it with you all, my calculation, and it's correct. The other thing that I'll show yet in the calculation, and that's also very nice. I told you that usually I never show calculations, but if you go back to this calculation here, look at this. The other thing, do you remember this else, forever else that we needed in the past? Something like, I will not try to pronounce the name of this calculation. That's one I want. The soort één had het al gehad. Let's ignore this part. I would need to do this equal Boomhard or equal boss or equal, and would be here the rest of the day creating our statement. Now we have in that allows us to simplify this. We create a set, and this set will be compared to the main one. And I also found a nice thing to do with this with one of my friends, because he was like, because I have some friends that they send me messages during the weekend asking me how to use Tableau, because they don't understand that during the weekend I don't work for Tableau, but okay. And then my friend sent me a message during the weekend that was like, oh, I need to group some countries, but the country that I need to group is not yet appearing in the data set. How do I do it? Because I can see the country to kind of tick on it and then put that it's part of the group. Here we go. You can write the name of the country in this statement, and then you have it forever. But don't send me messages in the weekend asking for it.
I've got a question from the audience from the webinar. Somebody's asking if the in operator is also planned to be included in Tableau Prep.
Oh, this is a good question. I can check during the talk of the next people and see if which information I have available. I can have a look. I promise that I will come back in the end of the talk of Tristan. Right? So, okay. We saw in operator, we saw the calculation, we approved my use of green. What we'll do now, and then we're done, is, let me just move this because Zoom put the thing right over, my Zoom record is right over my Tableau thing. So what I will do now is publish. And when we publish, you notice that we also have something different here. And what we have now is optimizer. So for all of you that love to kind of connect to different data sets, don't use the data set and then you leave the data set there forever in your workbook, just occupying space. Or for those of you that love to kind of bring this data set with 200 columns, use 3 columns, and then leave the other 197 columns there just occupying space and making it messy and lowering the performance. You can now check best practice with Tableau. And look at this, it's amazing. It's here telling me, hey, Rachel, you haven't used a data source. And this is true. I have 2 that are there and I'm doing absolutely nothing with them. You have also, you use it fields. So I can go there and I can just kind of clean it. So basically we have now a way to, before publishing, just check what you're doing and what you're sending to the server. And this is, as I told you before, launched yesterday evening. So if you now upgrade for 2022.1, you have this available. And questions? Yeah. Sorry, is it?
Connected to the data source. Also works for fields here.
It will work in your workbook. So if you're, for instance, connected to anything that you're not using, it will tell you that you're not using, basically. Yeah. Yeah, because at the moment, the idea of it's a workbook optimizer at the moment. So the idea is to, in your workbook, and when you're developing your workbook, when you're doing stuff, what you can do to make it perform better.
Yeah, right.
The data source, if for instance, if you have lineage, it's quite easy to see if it's connected to something or not. But the workbook optimizer, their main idea is in the workbook.
If you have a question, please repeat the question before answering it, because
Oh, the microphones. Yeah, sorry. I repeat the question that I just answered was about the optimizer, where it was working, basically. And I'm saying here that it's focused in the workbook, so everything that is in the workbook will be checked. And yeah, and that was my demo that I thought that I would crash much more stuff than I did in the end. Quick recap then of the main things that we saw. So we got relationships in operator, block comments, quick LODs, as data, personal space, map layers, new visual bar, and I put this beautiful one here in the end for those of you using Tableau Online. Don't throw anything on me, okay? Everyone needs to have MFA, so multi-factor authentication for everyone on top, please, right? And don't get angry at me. I'm not the person. I also don't like MFA, but it makes life safer. And last thing before I forget, Tableau conference, it's happening again. Because we haven't had a Tableau conference in November, we're having Tableau conference now in May, in person and virtual. So Vegas is back, virtual for everyone that cannot go to Vegas. And that was it. Thanks everyone. And yeah, have fun.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for presenting that. I'm sure there were at least some new things that
didn't at least test out myself before. So nice to see that. All right, and yeah, Rachel already mentioned Tableau Conference 2021. We still have some leftover T-shirts from our last event. So anyone who would like a Tableau Conference shirt at the end, just come by. There's plenty of sizes. We'll get you sorted.
There's a question for Tim.
Well, there's plenty. Yes, to be honest. We don't need to worry. Not the presentations, just
This one? Oh,
this one's mine. Yes. All right. So now for some tips and tricks in Tableau Desktop. All right. So I am going to get started with a little tip that I once learned around self-filtering on actions when you have sheets. The problem that I sometimes run into when you have something like this, where you have like sales per country and then sales per state, right? If you would now just click on this and you have like a default setup for a dashboard action, the list of states might not fit this space. And what I would like instead is to have this sheet kind of filter itself and kind of collapse on itself to make some space. A little bit like what it does right now. But that's not how Tableau normally does it, right? So when you're in your dashboard actions, this is a new feature I'm also not completely in love with, but it's okay. Let's look at the ones just on this sheet. And I can see that I filtered my countries on, or at least I filtered my states by country. But it doesn't really work if I just select this one as well. It doesn't do anything. That's the default setting. And when you try that, it doesn't actually filter itself. So there's two ways to work around that. The one that I've learned first was to add a second filter. And then you filter the country on itself. But the destination, instead of taking the destination from the dashboard and select, well, ticking the sheet, you need to take it from this drop-down menu and specifically target the sheet. And if you do that, it works like I just showed. I guess the alternative that you can also do is to remove this, and then I can show you the default behavior as well. Because now if I deselect, oh, it's stuck. Okay. Let's remove that action. Yep. Now if I select or deselect, it just stays like this. And now for the UK, that's okay, but for France, there's lots of regions, and you can see you get 2 scroll bars, which is just not the best. But what you can do is to go, whoop, this one doesn't have a filter, is to go to the filter, select, not like that, select the menu and apply to selected worksheets. And now you can apply it back to itself, essentially this country sheet. And this also works. So then you don't need an extra action. And now if you and then it completely crashes. Not the best solution, maybe. I think this has to do also with the hiding when deselecting. So if you don't hide it when deselected, it's okay. But the initial way of having 2 different actions actually works this most smooth for me always. Then the second one is also around actions. I've got a couple of tips around actions. And sometimes when you have a lot of actions, and especially when you're sharing those dashboards in like a screenshot or a PowerPoint, it can become a little bit hard to see what objects were selected before creating the screenshots. And with that, I actually stole this from one of the Workout Wednesday exercises. It's an online project that they're doing. And this one was about making your headers a little bit more responsive to the selections. So instead, for example, if I select a state here, let's say California, you can see this header and this header now become responsive. And if I share this screenshot, people don't really need to look here to see that I've selected California. They can see it in the headers. And the same here with the birds. And now you can see these are incidents over time in California with perching birds. So it's a little bit more interactive. So how do you do that? Again, look into the calculations. One more tip here. If you're ever having a big data set and you just want to look at your calculated fields, you can do C:, and then it just shows you your calculated fields. Something, I don't know if it's ever documented, but somebody showed me this and it's a really good trick. Again, for the titles, it's relatively simple. You just kind of look at if there's just one, in this case, species selected. So if the minimum is equal to the maximum, then I'm going to show it, else I'm just going to have a blank. And the same for the title, for the states in the title. So you make this calculation, and then in the title itself, okay, that's edit the title, you just combine the sheet name with that additional calculated field to get that dynamic table, dynamic title. Yeah, so and then maybe we could switch to some of your tips. I've got a couple more coming later.
I've got some of the diverse tips, and one of them is about maps. And for the ones who saw the user group in, I guess, for January, I talked about some tips about maps and how you can show them in different ways, just like not only the boring gray one, but the 80s 8-bit and the upside down. I found this one last week, or the Amazing Netherlands, kind of the Spider-Man look. But one of the questions I got from several people was, can I just isolate one country? I don't want to see the world. I just want to see Netherlands. And yes, you can do that. So I don't want to see Belgium or Germany, but just Netherlands. How do you do that? We use the map layers. And if I look for the country, I have the country and I want to select only in the Netherlands. So I drag the country to the sheet and don't see anything, but this is the map layer and I select it here to the map. Okay, I've got Netherlands selected, but very bright. Then I select the color and I move the opacity to 0%. So it disappears again. But I want to have something, so I grab the border and I put it on black. It's hardly, you can hardly see it, but oh boy. But now the easy trick is if I remove the back layer, so if I right click and select the map layers, and I guess I showed this also last time, and you've got the washout, and the washout default is 0%, you can see it all. But you can remove it, for example, to 100%. Now I've got only the Netherlands with only your data. This works very well, but in I guess it's now 3 months ago, 2021.4 was released, and just showed us. Now you can add shapes and other data sources to your map. So if I remove and go back to my default, what I just had. Oh, that's for later. Oh. Yes. With country. And I added an extra data source, which is a shapefile. A shapefile you can download it from all over the internet. And this is a shapefile with just information about Netherlands. And this one's nice because this has more information than just our borders. So if I add the geometry to my map layer, I've got all the countries, gemeentes. And I could do the same trick, just remove the base map. And now it's much more detailed. One disadvantage of map layers is, if I click on it, like this, I've got, I can't interact with it. So what you need to do is on the map layer, select the geometry and say disable selection. So you can only see the map layer, but you can't select it. You can only select your data. You can even extend this. See, wash out. Don't forget. Example. I found a different shape layer. It was all the roads of the Netherlands. And if I add this one, and look, now I've got a map with all the roads. So you can add just your own shapes with different data sources. Another tip, completely different one, is about bands, the big ass numbers. Maybe you've seen this dashboard before. This is default in each Tableau desktop workbook. And this has got bands. But I think, yeah, if you need to extend, to point out some figures, please make them even more bigger. So just go to them, add text. And instead of just 12, make it 48. And we've got Tableau bold font. Okay, maybe this one is just too big for this dashboard. Make it a bit smaller. This is very dependent on the size of the dashboard, but I guess 36 should be usable. And look, now you've got the big number. So even if you're in the back of the room, you can still see the sales numbers, the profits percentages, and so on. And talking about bands, if you need to add them to a dashboard, you can do some nice trick with them. I selected the sales figure for my Superstore dataset per month. And believe me, it's until March. The first thing we do, no, TTT, and this one. I add the filter on the order date with just the last 2 months, because I want to see the sales for this month compared to last month. Next part is I add a table calculation, which I compute the difference between these two figures. So March is a good one. It's 5.6% better than last month. But yeah, it's one of my pet peeves. I like, if it's better, put a plus sign in front of it. It's a negative, it's a minus. So just put a plus sign onto it. You can do it very easily. I just enlarged it. If you go to the formatting of the percentage, you could just add the plus sign in front of the positive sign and the minus sign, just like that. So if you look at that, okay, now we see, okay, it's 5.6% better than last month. If you want to be creative, you can also use little signs, like a small arrow to the top or to the bottom. And the easiest way to do that is just Google, for example, triangle UTF-8. You can find all kinds of websites, this W3 schools, and you can just copy and paste it to Tableau and do it exactly the same way. You can use a lot of symbols within Tableau without using real images. So now we've got this one. Yeah. You can do it, but I won't explain this time, but maybe next time. Because we've only got the time. Yeah. Okay, we will do it afterwards. Yeah. Then I would need some more information into the ban. I want to compare it with last month. So I want to show the value of last month. So, and I want to show which month it was. So create a small calculation, look up, and we want to have the date name of the month of the order date -1, so the previous one. And now I can create a nice calculation which said, okay, but my sales is 123,990 euros, and that's 6% plus compared to February, which was 117,419. So now this part is useless. So I can compress my data, and I removed it. But did I do that? It's a very simple calculation. Maybe it's the most simple one. It's just last. If I remove this one, we got these ones, and the last is a table calculation, and it gives you the number of columns or rows until the last one. So February is 1, it has a distance of 1 of the last, and March is the last one, so it's 0. So I can add this calculation of my filter, and I only want to keep 0. And because it's a table calculation, it doesn't filter out the February data. it only filters on the table calculation. So I only keep the table calculation of 0. And there it is. And I can remove this one. And if you want, you can color this. And you can make it even more. So please inspire us. Yes, please.
There also a lot of text number, like last 3, last 5, last 4.
You want to know if it's the second last, for example.
Yeah.
You can use the same. If I add last, for example, here, and I move this filter, I remove all other dates. Look, my April 2018 is 47 columns away. So if I only need the second last, I can add the last function and, for example, only keep the one. So you can always have the last full month.
Yeah, we can also, yeah, we expect that we can also resort the field if we want the other side.
Yeah. And you've got first, you've got last. Yeah. First, last, and all kind of index functions. Okay, Jim.
Just toggling back to my tips. All right, so then there's also keeping on the theme of action filters. I mean, it's kind of some 80s action, I guess. So historically, it was really difficult to use a action filter kind of feature on the measure names. And why would you use this? I'll just show you kind of the final result. For example, here you have like different measures, and you might just want to click to change the graph to show that specific measure, right? So now I'm looking at quantity, but I can also look at discount. I can look at profit. I can look at quantity again, look at sales. So this is really useful when you have these KPIs and you don't want to spend lots of screen estate on different graphs. You just want to have one graph. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, if I go back one step, the way I do it is to just use a parameter to change from discount to profit, etc. And if I go a bit deeper, what does that look like? I have a specific calculated field, and it basically says when it's discount, then show the discount. When it's profit, show the profit based on that parameter. So you do have to manually set it up, but once you have this, and you go to the one that has the actions, you never were able to reference measure names in your calculated fields, which was also always a bit of a shame because there could be ways where you're like, oh, but if it's this measure name, I want to do this. If it's this measure name, I want to do this. Can't be done, but you can do it with the parameter, and you can do it with a parameter action. So as of, I don't know exactly when, probably 2 years back, they introduced the parameter actions and the option to target the parameter with, as a source field, the measure name, which is really awesome because now you can use that parameter action to set the parameter to that measure name, use your calculated field to show a specific measure. So to me, it was a bit of a shock that you could actually select the measure names here because I had to do some kind of exercise or something. And I was looking at different ways because I never really realized that you could use measure names here. And I thought, well, that's, again, just something you have to be told or shown once, and then you know it forever. And it's a really useful technique of showing different KPIs and different, especially details of KPIs in this way. Then the final one is around, again, based on a Workout Wednesday exercise that I did. It's around a cross-sell analysis. So it has to do with if I have orders, again, using Superstore, can I find all the orders that contain a specific product? And can I then find what other products were in those orders? So you need quite a bit of steps here, or at least there's a couple of steps. First, of course, you want to look at all the different orders and you want to have their total values and quantities shown. Second is to create a set, at least that's how I did it. So I created a set based on products. So there's a product name selection set. It has a set control here, which is also a nice addition out of the last year, that you can actually change what's in your set. It has a single select here. And I've created a calculated field that shows me if the product in my set is actually showing up, and that's where I needed a LOD. Sorry, it's a little small maybe, but essentially it's fixing on the order. So I want to know per order, is there at least one of those selected products in this order? Because there can be multiple lines per order with different products. Once I have that, I get, you can see here, there's lots of orders where there's none of those. But when I add that to the filter, I didn't yet. If I say, well, I just want to see the orders that have those products, I can now see these are the orders that have this product. And because it's a fixed LOD, I never really filtered any of the product lines. I just filtered the orders here. So I can still see the full sales and quantity of that order that included this product. Then the final challenge was, can I also see when it's combined with other products? So this is where I just added a filter on the product name again. And now I can see that combined with this, what is it? A round wall clock. When people order this wall clock, they also order these items. And if I want to know who buys a clock and a staple paper, I can now see it was this order, this was the total value of the order, and this was total quantity included in that order. So again, more of it, maybe not a technical like analysis, but it helps you kind of do the analysis yourself, and it really makes it easier to find those complete orders rather than filtering down. Because if you would have gone with a filter in the first step, you would have filtered down and seen the orders, but you would have lost all the other order lines within those same orders. And that's what you want to kind of avoid with this technique. And that's essentially what that tip was all about. And I think, I don't know if there's any questions.
We have one question,
Oh.
but it
Was already answered?
you didn't expect.
No, no worries. No.
Does that filter the most recent date value will accomplish the same here?
I think that's based on the tip from Johan. If you filter, I think the challenge with what Johan just described, when you did the KPIs, and if you would filter down to the most recent date, the filtering to a date applies before table calculations. So when you do that, there's nothing to refer to the previous period anymore. And that's why Johan did the tip to use the last function, because table calculations are all calculated at the same time and then applied as a filter. So you already calculated the lookup, and then you start filtering down based on the last. Okay, cool. But those were my last tips. So back to Johan for the last final tip.
Final tip. Let's choose. I'll take two tips. The one is a very simple one. If you're stuck in Tableau, what are you going to do? Usually you're going to complain. You're going to Google around. But maybe just go to the forum. Tableau has a very nice forum, which you can ask all kinds of questions on all different topics. People are asking about calendars, about maps, about especially about APIs. How can you do this? I've got this specific situation. I can see a lot of people who are using Tableau on school. They've got an assignment. They don't know how to fix it. So they go to the forum. So please ask them. And if you know a bit more about Tableau, please use your knowledge just to help people on the forum. You can collect points. And you've got the highest badge is the VIP of 79,100 points. And that's a lot. But I don't want to discourage you. We've got some people with over 300,000 points. There are some nice visionaries. I'm well below these. So please, go there, and you can also collect your own badges. You can be your own question slayer, your answer wizard. But you can also get badges on. Okay, you know a lot about installation upgrades. My final tip is about pointing out a single dot in your visualization. I've got a scatter plot. These are all kinds of countries, and I need to accentuate just one of them. And of course, I can create a shape, but look, this is my shape. You can hardly see it. And of course, I can enlarge it, but it's still ugly. I tested out reference lines. It can be done, but I really didn't like it because it's really offsetting the whole visualization, and you don't know what's the median, what's the point. So what I did, I created a new shape in Tableau, and it's a shape of an arrow, but I didn't use a normal arrow. I created an arrow in a larger canvas. So the dot of my arrow is centered in my shape. And why did I do that? Look, now I can create a visualization which exactly points to the dot I'm pointing at, instead of just covering my this dot. Yeah. You lose a dot. You replace the dot by the arrow. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, yes. What I could do was indeed, if I added exactly what I also use this tip. If you use the Google Maps icon, the marker, the pinpoint. Yes. If you use it on a normal map, it will cover your city, your location. But if you use it so on top and with the bottom part in the center of your shape, it will exactly point out your location you want to point at. Yeah, you can do a lot. Yeah. I got more tips, but these are for a different time.
Yes, hello everyone, thank you. First, thank you for everyone who joined us today, like in person. It has been a long time. Thanks also for everyone who is with us online. Hope you enjoyed the hybrid event. My name is Tristan Guillevin. I'm working as a freelance, and the talk of today, I live in Rotterdam, so happy to be here. It was easy for me. My presentation today is build visualization from the future. So I don't claim to have been in the future. I don't claim to know even what the future is made from. But what to stay in the theme of the place we are today and the theme of the TUG, I wanted to display a bit how far can you push Tableau and what really you can do with Tableau. So it's a technical presentation. There are a lot of different tools that I use, and I hope everything will go fine. But yeah, that's the fun, right? So for this presentation, I built this dashboard. So I published it 2 days ago. And during this presentation, the last part, I will redo it with you step by step. I will show you exactly how to build this kind of visualization, and we will go through the entire process. But before that, and to still stay in the theme, that's the agenda. So first, we will part 1, attack of the dashboard clones, part 2, a new data hope, and part 3, the return of the Tableau Jedi. So let's start with the part 1. And for that, we have to go back in 2014. So not as far as the 80s, but just 2014. What happened that year is I started working. And my first tool that I used was SAP Business Objects BI. I saw some people laughing in the crowd, so I guess, well, some people know it. So yeah, it was definitely not the funniest tool to use, but it was my first introduction into the BI world, into the data visualization, data analysis. 1 year later, I started to work as a consultant and I discovered Tableau, so my hard years were quite short, so I was happy for that. And I used Tableau to build my very first Tableau public dashboard that was about a race that is happening every year in the city I was living in, Strasbourg. And I just wanted to see, okay, I have this tool, Tableau, I can publish things on Tableau Public. Let's do a personal dashboard. So I made this one. And it was a really simple dashboard, right? Just a bar chart and a map. So really, really something simple. 1 year later, I started work for one of a client called the Council of Europe. And this is really an interesting mission I had, and I can talk about it because what we did is on Tableau Public. It's also everything we did is available on Tableau Public. And the goal was to recreate that book, Efficiency and Quality of Justice. It's a 200 pages book in a Tableau dashboard. So how is that possible? How do you transform 200 pages in a Tableau dashboard? Well, the book, it was displaying the answers of questions that were transferred to different members' country. And for each questions, and there were like more than 200 questions, there was the same display, the same layout. A question was, you had the table showing all the numbers, you had a bar chart, and you had a map, okay? So because there are 200 questions, then you had a lot of repetition of the same tables, map, and bar charts. So that's what it did in Tableau. So we simply asked the user to choose the questions. And once you choose the question, it could see the result in a table, in a bar chart, or in a map, right? Quite simply. And then instead of having the repetition of all the page, you just select the question and you have the 3 visualizations. That was just an example of what I was doing in my job. And at the end, in that dashboard, there were only tables, bar charts, line charts, and map. And for a very good reason, right? Tables are perfect to export and to see the raw value, the actual value. Bars are perfect to compare. Lines show the evolution. And the map gives, especially in a context of European countries, show a geographical information. So it's completely okay to only use tables, bar charts, line charts, and map. They are the most efficient charts you can use, and they work really well. But as I was doing more and more work for more and more clients, I was kind of stuck in that loop of doing tables, bar charts, line chart, and maps, right? And at some point, I personally, some people are really fine with that, but I was like, I want to do something different. I want to try to do things that are a bit different. And I set myself a goal is to do more creative dashboard, and not for my clients, because I still believe that for a client and for a business purpose, you need to go to the efficient side. You need to be efficient, but on your free time, on your Tableau Public, just be free to do whatever you want. So that's the part 2, a new data hope. And I really like this graphic is made by Elijah Mix, and it shows the 2 paths you could take when you start to do a visualization. You can go on that side, the really precise, numeric, clean, something really business efficient, something that tells you an information, it's clean, it's slick, it works. Or you can go on the other side and do something that is more engaging, more designing, more like artistic, more complex, and not necessarily really efficient to read, and not necessarily always telling the exact truth, but people like to see it. And my goal was, well, to be in the middle, to try to do something clean, efficient, but also that people will enjoy seeing, will like to see. So try to be a bit, and it's difficult to be in that middle point between too precise or too complex. And that's what I tried to do. So in 2017, I released my first a bit funky dashboard about beer consumption in Europe. And in the end, this is nothing more than a bar chart and map. It's just bar chart and map. There is 3 bar chart, 4 actually, and 2 maps. But the bar chart are a bit customized with forms, with a bit of picture, with a bit of, it's just a bar chart of a glass. It's just a bar chart of a beer pint, right? So yeah, it's just bar charts and map. Another one that I did, this one for the RNV's feeder in 2017, was a dashboard about the forest, about deforestation, about biodiversity and endangered species. And really the main theme of that dashboard is a story. It's a story, like really with chapter and everything. And actually you wake up in a jungle and you are lost and you don't really know what you do in that jungle. So I wanted the people who are using that dashboard to feel the same thing as the person in the story. It means you open the dashboard and you are a bit lost. There are a lot of elements. You don't really know where to look at. And some people criticize this dashboard on a really good point is there is a bit too much element. It is not really precise. It is not clear. It's not. But that was my goal. So for me, it was goal achieved. But in the end, even if you again take really care about looking at the dashboard, it's maps and bar charts. I have not used anything else than a few bar charts and one map. So all the funkiness, let's say, comes from decoration, adding image, adding this kind of element. But it worked, and thanks to that visualization, I was able to go in Las Vegas and compete in the RNV's competition. So for those who don't know, you have 20 minutes to build a dashboard on stage, and then 5 minutes to present it in an audience of like 10,000 people. And the dashboard I did was this one. So nothing funky, efficient, clear, just simple visualization. The data set was the housing market in United States. When you only have 5 minutes to make a dashboard understandable for the people, you want something efficient. You don't want them to look at pictures and to don't know. You want them to understand. So it shows the housing market crash, actually. And on your left side, you can see the 3 main periods: the bubble, the crisis, and the recovery. But you still want to engage with the audience. You still want to see something. You just still want to feel them to feel something. So the main thing of this dashboard was the animation. So I click on play button, and you could see actually soon the crash happening. You could see all in every state in the US, the housing market plummet and how all the house lost their values. So if you cannot make something funky, just use other type. Animation works really well to engage with an audience, with a real live audience. But yeah, in the end, even in this one, it was area chart. Okay, not line, but area, still the same, maps and bar chart. So I was still doing the same thing. And after that, after this RNV's point, I said to myself, I will not anymore, I will still do for my client, but on public, I will focus on doing things that are different. And in 2008, that's where I started to go a bit crazy. So still using only Tableau, I made some visualization about who I follow on Twitter. I'm making sure I follow equally men and women, the press freedom that is not really a bar chart, but kind of with a lot of color. I just experimented. And then I started to incorporate more tools. And that's when the things really changed. So I did this visualization about the data farm universe. So what it shows is every circle is a person who tweeted data, it was TC19, so during the Tableau conference. So every person, every dot here is someone who posts a tweet with the hashtag TC19. And then when you click on a dot, on a person, then you can see all the other person that he or she mentioned. So for example, this is me, the white dot, and you can see everyone else with whom I interacted with during TC through Twitter. And the size is the number of tweets. And to do this kind of visualization, I had to use D3JS, so a JavaScript library that allows you to create charts. And I will show you how to convert JavaScript into Tableau in a way. Then I experimented a bit more, still with the library D3 and observable. And I invented a technique to do a Voronoi tree map and to put it in Tableau. So if you want to do these kind of things, there is a generator, like a super easy tutorial that you just input a CSV and you can have your data in that Voronoi tree map way. This shows the percentage of land cover in OECD countries. So you can see the countries with more forest, the country with more grassland, with more crops, things like that. And as always, when you do something that is not conventional, some people will criticize, will say, why you don't do a bar chart? I will be able to compare the land cover way more easily with a bar chart. But people who say that, they don't open the viz, because if you click on that small button, well, you have the bar chart view. So, and that is something really important. You want something to grab the attention to your audience. You want something that hook them and they click on it to see what is going on, to see that weird thing, what is it saying. But then you want still to give them the information in a clear and efficient way for them to not lose time. So you can really easily see like that a bit difficult, but if you present the information in a bar chart, you can really easily see the percentage of every type of length. Continuing a bit, we experimented with the circle packing and a library called rough.js that allows you to have this kind of hand-drawn feeling. And this one was a collaboration with Yvette. Continuing with this time another tool. I just had an iPad and I was there is this tool called Procreate that allows me to draw things. What if I incorporate drawings in my workbook? So this is like the percentage of women participant in the Olympics, and I made the kind of style of the picture using Procreate. And almost finally, another network graph showing the collaboration between Latin music artists. And this, for the first time, I used Figma. So Figma, for those who don't know, it's a really nice tool that allows you to play with the UI and to instead of having to be in your Tableau dashboard to do all the UI thing, you can do it in Figma and then import what you do in Figma directly in Tableau. So Figma also allow me to create these gradients that are in my circle, to be able to have not only a plain circle but some kind of gradient. So that was kind of my journey, starting with really bar chart, line chart, maps, and stuff like that, and try to go more and more crazy, more and more interesting, and also every time trying to add a new tool and to see how that tool can combine with Tableau. And now I'm going to show you exactly how I built this one using Photoshop, D3, Figma, and Tableau. And I hope everything will go well. So let's go in Tableau. I cannot see. So this is, I don't know where to put it. Let's put it up there for the moment. So this is my data set. Rachel, I'm not entirely sure it's the same data set, but we will find kind of exactly the same info. So what I had is the title of the movie, the release date, the revenue that were generated in US soil, the average vote, and the count of votes, just to show what I used. And I already put a few filters on the year to keep only the movies in the 80s. A filter on the vote count, because I wanted the average vote to be a bit significant, to mean something. So I said, if the movie doesn't have at least 50 votes, I'm not taking it. I want movies that have at least 50 votes. The revenue of at least one, because unfortunately, some movies, I didn't have the revenue information. It was 0. So I put at least 1 of revenue to be able to use that revenue column. And for the genre, my genre where one movie could have different genre, right? It could be a horrific science fiction movie or like a humoristic adventure science fiction. So I use a wildcard filter to match and to say, I want to keep every movie where the genre contains science fiction. I ended up with 89 movies that we will analyze. So this is really my first step is always to explore. So it's exploration 1. I explore my data set and I see what is available, what is the data quality, what I can do with the data. And then I started to do visualization. And I never start with the network. I never start with the Voronoi. I always start with simple things like everyday bar charts. So my first visualization, number 1, movies ranked by revenue. So you can see the 80s movie with the highest science fiction movie with the highest revenue, E.T., then Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Back to the Future, and Future Part 2. That is already something interesting, something that I enjoy learning. These 2 movies ranked by ratings, and this time just the same kind of bar chart, but the movies are ranked by their vote. Best movie of the 80s, according to the audience, the people voting, The Empire Strikes Back. Then Back to the Future, Return of the Jedi, Blade Runner, The Thing, Akira, Aliens, Terminator, etc. Then for my first viz, I wanted to combine a bit all of that, and I simply show the movie, all my movies, the higher they are, the better they are. So the vote count is your higher movie is this one, is Empire Strikes Back is the highest vote. Then on the x-axis, I put the release date. So the more you go to the right, the more recent in the movie. So you have a timeline of where the movie were released. And the size is the revenue. So really clearly you can see what movie are good, when are they released, and did they generate a lot of revenue. And you can already see some interesting things. For example, Blade Runner here, it's a really good movie, but that generated not a lot of revenue. And an even more extreme example, especially in US soil, Akira, that is a really good movie that I recommend to everyone, but has generated not even $1 million revenue in the US, but with a average rating of 7.8. So yeah, you can see worst movie of the 80s, science fiction, Superman 4, no idea, never watched it. So those were my three first visualization. Now exploration 2, and that's where I can say that this was not the same data set, is because my list of actors were really crappy. So for a movie, I had a string list of the different people, all the people that were in the movie. So for example, Back to the Future here, I had that big list when I see, for example, character Marty McFly, name of the actor, Michael J. Fox. So I had information, it was just really badly, I couldn't use that in Tableau. So for that, I just use Tableau Prep, right? Tableau Prep is a really easy tool that allows you to prep your data. And what I did is simply transform all these string into multiple lines to be able to exploit it. And the result, really simple. I will not enter in the detail of the prep, is really just like a join. This was the result. So I have the title of my movie, the name of the different actors, and the order of appearance of those actors in the credits. So usually the actor that appears first in a credit is the main actor. And in my dataset, it was always the case. So Blade Runner, Harrison Ford. If I go to Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, etc. When you have something like, when I saw that, I really thought about doing the network, because you can do really interesting things. You can say, for every title, I want to see all the actors that are connected to that movie, all the actors that played in that movie. But you can also do the other way and say, for example, if I keep Harrison Ford, yep. I want to keep Harrison Ford. I need to do that. I keep Harrison Ford and I put it in the beginning. And now I can see, okay, for that actors, what are all the movies he played in? So you could do two things, right? You could see for one movie, all the actors in it, and for one actors, all the movies it played in. So for me, it was the perfect things for a network, right? You could have movies, actors, and the connection between them. So thankfully, I already knew how to do a network graph in Tableau because I did it in the past. And actually, if you want to do it, I released a tutorial that explains you really step by step how to do it with a generator, with everything you need. And just to explain it to you, you need first to have your data in that specific format. So you need a list of, it's a JSON with movies in a list of nodes. So each node is either a movie or an actor. So that is your circle. And then the links, so the link between the circle are also in that format, source target. Okay, so I will show that in Tableau. So I created, so yeah, to create that JSON, you could be, I really don't know how to format the data to have it in that JSON type of format. And honestly, right, I don't know either, but I know how to use Tableau and to use a concatenation, right? So if I just open my actor node calculation, it is just a concatenation of all those like opening bracket, double point, all those things. So I have the actor name, the actor ID, the popularity, that is something I calculate by looking at the number of movies an actor played in and the order of appearance. And then I generated my node. So all of those lines were my different actor nodes, my different circle. I did the same for the movies. So each line was generating me a kind of JSON style movie list. And the same for the link, where I put the movie, the actor, and a simple concatenation that says, okay, the source is this actor and the target is that movie, okay? I copy paste the content of those columns and I put them simply in a JSON file, which is here. And that was it. So I did the data prep in Tableau. So even if Tableau is a DataViz tool, you can use it for data preparation. So by just copy pasting, I had my list of nodes, so all my actors, and my list of movies, and the link between my actors and my movies. Okay, that is really first step number one to do a network graph. You need to have a list of nodes, your circle, and a list of links, your lines. So what else do you need to generate a network graph? Well, you need some HTML, so just a web page that will display the viz. Really simple. There is nothing in that, just a body and div, and that's it. You need really simple CSS, just to say my background color will be black and my size, the size of my visualization will be this. And the most important part, you need your JavaScript that will generate the network. So let me just launch the server so you will see. So I just start a server and that's my network graph. So I just input my JSON that I generated in Tableau. I put it in that JavaScript and it generates that network graph automatically with D3.js, with that code that is available online to do network graph. What you can configure with that is simply the size. So for example, if you want to increase the size of something, you can change a bit that, and you will see now the size of my actors are bigger. You can increase the size of the movie. So if you want your movies to be really big, you can also do it. Like you can just play with all those different parameters until you find the result of the network graph that you like. You can increase the strength to really expand it, but maybe that's a bit too much. Or you can also decrease the strength to have them more compact, but maybe that's not enough. So you really have to play until you find the perfect layout for your network graph. And you have a few force. So it's stay in the theme, right? You have a few force that you can apply to your network. One is the strength of repulsion and attraction. One is the strength of collision. So if you want to avoid that your circle collide and enter into one another, you need to have that force of collision. So you say no circle can overlap. That is something I wanted. And then you have also the X and Y force that, for example, if you want your visualization to be more vertical or more horizontal in that case, or more horizontal. So you apply different force. Each force has a strength. And when you modify the strengths, you change the layout of your network graph, right? This one is completely available on Observable. So the generator that I use, where you can play with the strengths and see visually how your network graph will change. But yeah, we are not finished yet because this is still in the web, right? This is not in Tableau. This is a web page. This is SVGs that lives in a web page. This is not in Tableau. But what I did is so for those who know JavaScript, you can log information in your JavaScript console, like in your navigator console. So what I did is exactly that. I log in my console log the coordinate of every point and every link that exists in that web page. So it's if I show it in the code like this one, you will see quite easily the result of my nodes. So it's nothing more than a CSV that's open with CSV editor. Nothing more than a CSV with the index, the ID, the name of my point. So it could be a movie or an actor, the size, and the most important part, my X and Y coordinate. So that is what Tableau needs to plot something, X coordinate and Y coordinate. Tableau doesn't know how to plot SVG. Tableau doesn't know how to plot a lot of things, but if you have X and Y coordinates, you can do everything in Tableau. That is really your number one goal if you want to do something crazy, X and Y position. So these are my nodes, and my links is exactly the same. In the end, is just CSV. that says that has an index and say this person, this actor is the source and that movie is the target. So, and the position of the beginning and the end. So I could draw a line to connect my source and my target. Okay, so I have two CSV, one for the nodes, one for the link. I just put that in Tableau, back in Tableau. Let me move that. And I have my network. And if you look at the, where is it? If you look at the layout, it is the same layout that because I just basically exported the coordinate of that view in a CSV and I put it in Tableau. So I just have my X for the line, my X for the circle, and the circle have a size, and I could recreate my network. And remember that you can create absolutely everything in Tableau, everything, as long as you can convert what you see in simple coordinates, right? So that was, we are almost done. We are almost finished because I have my 4 visualization. I just put them in a dashboard. So my network, my timeline, and my 2 bar charts. And the only thing I did is like switch the color, right? I just put, instead of having it black on white, I put it white on black. That's it. And it was time to go in Figma. Before that, I just wanted to have some color and some of color direction. So the only thing I did because I didn't like the orange and the blue of that visualization, I just decided to have the movies in yellow and the main actor in blue and the other actor in gray, right? So at least you can make sense of what are you looking at. So I click on dashboard, export the image to have that thing as an image, and I put it in Figma. So this is my Figma flow. So I started with that simple image. And Figma, remember, this is where the UI will happen. This is where we will build really the dashboard and everything. So that image that I generated, and it's really just the export that I did. I say, well, today the presentation is at Tech Noir, right? So I just look at Tech Noir design, and I was like, okay, they use this cool neon light, this kind of pinkish grid. And while the blue, I already have some blue in my data visualization. So why not combine it with that bright pink? And that's what I did. So for the title, I put the title in that bright pink. And I just tested because Tableau allows you to iterate with your data and to play with your data really easily. But Figma allows you to play and iterate with your design really easily. So I just tried this font, this one, just to try to see which font will work best. And I really like this one because it was a bit funky, a bit 80s, but also readable. For me, more readable than the other one. Then I wanted to do something with my dots. I wanted to be able to really differentiate the actors to the movies, because just circle, you will have to refer to the color and say, okay, that color is a movie, that color is an actor, blah, blah. So I wanted to say the circles are my actors, and I will use another shape for my movies. So I just tested different design. I still had some circle. I just experimented in Figma to have different shape, and I exported all of those shapes in Tableau, so in JPEG or PNG format, and I put them in my custom shapes. So I will do that with you. So let's go to the final viz. So I just added some text to see some movies to be able to read some of the movies. But as you can see, my movie are circles, my actors are also circle, and my link are lines. Now I can go to movies and say, well, I don't want circles, I want shape. And by default, the shape that Tableau uses is also a circle, so you don't really see a difference. But if I go to see more shapes, I have created a folder where I exported all of my Figma design different shapes. And now I can simply test it and say, would it be nice if my movies were like that? Would it be nice if my movies were in that shading of yellow, or maybe that shading of blue, or this like pink blue gradient? And in the end, I thought, but that is completely up to your personal preference, that just the plain yellow with a bit of halo was good. And what we will just need to do is increase a bit the shape, the size of the shape compared to the circle to be able to read the title of the movies. Yeah, like that. And now if I go back to my dashboard, I already have something that looks much better, much more interesting. By doing a simple change is just not having circle, but using a shape that you have designed. And designing a shape in Figma is really easy. Like you just do a square and you can play with the stroke and the effect and the background and stuff like that. So I had my dashboard, and what I did is I exported it again in a picture to put it back in Figma. So now I could again try to experiment with my design, but this time having the square instead of the circle. So what I continue to do, and as before, I use the Tech Noir logo. This time I use our Netherlands tag picture. And actually to do this picture, I had to learn how to do the neon kind of effect in Photoshop. So I was like, I already knew how to do that. Why not reuse it? So in Photoshop, you can do that really easily. You just write your text, you keep the outline, and when you double click on your text, you can just say, I want a white stroke, I want an inner glow of a pinky inner glow and a pinky outer glow, and you have this kind of effect. Of course, I didn't invent it. You just go on YouTube and you search how to do neon effect in Photoshop, and you have like 10,000 videos who explain you step by step how to do that, right? Like, so yep, still I export that title back in Figma again. I put my title and I think it looks good. So now I finalized it and I wanted to try to find where should I put the legend, right? Where should I put the legend that explain what are the movies, what are the actors, what the size represent and stuff like that. So I tried different layouts, like separate like this, maybe with some shading, maybe not. You just experiment, you just try, you can do no harm by just trying. And in the end, I found that having the legend on the right like this was really, really perfect. I already deleted the insights, but basically it was looking like that. And I was really happy with that design. I was like, no, that I think I can stop there because otherwise you can continue forever. I will stop and I will keep that as my final layout. So when you want to keep something in your final layout, that picture that I did of my Tableau, I will manage. So I just delete the inside of my export. So the Tableau thing that I exported, I just delete it. And I export my frame. So everything else except the viz that is already coming from Tableau. So I export this as a PNG. And now I can go in Tableau, in my dashboard, and really simply add an image, a background image of my frame 6 that I just exported. Okay, and that's it. So you don't have to do all the design and the containers and the floating and everything in Tableau. You can just export that in a tool that is meant to do that, a UI tool to do all of that. And yeah, in the end, that was my dashboard, completely ready to be published and to post. Small last part is I still ended up in Figma because once I exported my dashboard to share it with the world, to share it on Twitter, on social media, and to put things like that, there is, and Rachel, if you listen, I would really like to be able to customize I don't know, they're called those things that allows you to scroll bars, thank you, because you cannot change the color of them. And when I exported it with that bright thing, I was like, no, I don't want that. So I just put a black rectangle on top. And also because it's an image, I wanted to remove the click on a movie to highlight the connection. This is hidden because, yeah, on an image, you cannot do that. And I did a few other exports in order to have something cool to export on social media. And yeah, that was it. So the main thing also, and I forgot to say that before, is that every tool has a purpose. Tableau is not the best to do custom visualization like a network graph. You cannot do them directly in Tableau. You need to use another tool. So use another tool. Tableau is not the best to do a UI, right? And I think they are working on that. But when you build a dashboard, it's sometimes a bit painful to have to resize your dashboard, and then all your floating elements move, and you are not happy, or you have to use containers and stuff like that. So Tableau is not the best to iterate on a design. So do that in Figma. But because I still love Tableau and I still do everything in Tableau, right? Tableau is really good at one thing, and every time I speak with people who are not used to Tableau, there's something that struggle a lot, and I don't struggle at all, is interactions. And I think actually one of the best thing in Tableau is exploration, data exploration, and also interaction. Because once I had my network graph in Tableau, it was super easy to just add a dashboard action and say, when I click on a movie, I want to highlight all the actors that play in the movie. And when I click on an actor, I want to highlight all the movies he was playing in. And to do this extra step in JavaScript or in any other tool, that is really time consuming, and that is really like, it's complex, more complex than in Tableau when you just say, I want to have a highlight action in the current selection, right? So you can see, voila, all the movies where Harrison Ford was, all the movies of William Shatner, which play in all the Star Trek movies, and etc. So yeah. use the tool that fits your needs. And for me, it's like, in the end, it's really having that process of like exploring the data in Tableau, using other tools to create a bit engaging visualization, and finishing the design in Figma, and then putting all together, publishing on Tableau Public with a few nice interaction, and still keep some simple visualization like this one in the end, because you also want your user to have things that are easy to digest. And if they just want to know what is the best movie, what is the movie with the highest revenue, you can just find the information really easily. Where is my presentation? Yes. And that's it. So that was okay. Thank you. I will stop sharing my screen, and maybe if you have questions, or if people in the chat have questions, don't hesitate. We are here to answer your questions. Oh, I don't like to see myself. No, everyone here has a question. It was clear. Maybe a bit intense, right? No. Sorry. Figma is free. It's free. You have a free version. You can do all the design that I did are completely free. You can, and it's really a pleasure to use it. Like, it's not those kind of tool when you struggle. Like, for me, Photoshop, Illustrator are really heavy. Like, I really struggle. But Figma, for me, is like the equivalent of Tableau for visualization. You just drag and drop things, and everything is like playing with the design. You don't play with the data, you play with the design. And a lot of people use it. Yes. Anything else? So maybe everyone is hungry or thirsty. So we will have food and drinks available for you. Thanks everyone who came. Sorry for the people online, you don't have drinks or food. While you're home, sorry. So yes, thank you. Thank you everyone online. Bye-bye.